So before starting this video, I just want to say don't go harass anyone mentioned in this video. This is just my opinion and my critique, and partly also me explaining Theo's side of the situation. So don't go harassing anyone. That's stupid, and just don't do that. It's not helping anyone. Hey, hi, hello. I'm Kiwi, or Kwee if you will. You may or may not have seen posts going around on Instagram about this user named Theo Sucks Balls. You most likely haven't heard about it because it haven't been a major issue. Either way, I think it's important to talk about because Theo has been getting a lot of harassment due to these claims. Theo Sucks Balls, otherwise known as Theo, has been accused of various different things, from art theft to copying artists to pedophilia. Which reminds me, if you're sensitive to anything like grooming, pedophilia, art theft, anything of the kind, you should probably click off the video if that's something that really triggers you. So now I've said it, you've been warned. Starting off with the first accusation, art theft. Around the 10th December 2021, Theo posted this artwork to his Instagram. Barely a day after Theo made his post, a person named Panda Grace made a post accusing Theo of stealing their OC. Although the characters are in fact very similar, it's a pretty simple design and it could be a coincidence. Take DJ Vampire Smile for example. They too made a very similar OC in July of 2021. However, the reason people are so sure Theo stole from Panda Grace is because Theo knew of Panda Grace at the time. However, when I asked Theo about it, he said he only liked a couple of Panda Grace's posts. He wasn't even following them at the time. Basically, he wasn't even aware that Panda Grace had that character. However, after looking through Panda Grace's main Instagram profile, I was only able to find one artwork of this OC, and it was posted in 2020. I had asked Theo privately if he had been perhaps inspired by Panda Grace, and he said that he was actually inspired by a girl he found on Pinterest. He then proceeded to show this image, which really does look like the character he created, so I think it is possible that he, in his own creativity, made this character without even knowing of Panda Grace's character. So it is a possibility. However, even if we assume that Theo had purposely went and copied Panda Grace's OC, he said that this character wasn't even an established original character, it was just a doodle he had made, so he wasn't even claiming ownership of this design. Another artwork that got people pretty upset was this alien character that Theo had drawn. Reason being that it looks suspiciously familiar to Unknown Spy's very popular alien OC. When I asked Theo about it, he did confirm that the character was indeed inspired by Unknown Spy. He also mentioned that the character was pretty old and that he didn't use it anymore. Of all the accusations against Theo, this is the only one where you can truly say that this is a ripoff or a copy of a character. Which leads us to our next point, copying artists. For some context, shortly after Panda Grace's call-out post was made was when I found out about this whole thing and started getting involved, and I had commented in a comment section, and that's when Strawberry messaged me with some more accusations against Theo. According to Strawberry, Theo apparently has a history of copying other artists. They proceeded to show these images as proof. Honestly, when looking at them side by side, it's absolutely ridiculous to claim that this is copying or stealing from other artists. This is inspiration at best. One of these examples shown don't even look the same. They have like one thing in common. Some people complained that, oh, well, this artist said that you're not allowed to take inspiration from them, so Theo is at fault for taking inspiration. And that is just a dumb argument, and here's why. You literally cannot prevent people from taking inspiration from you, nor can you demand that they ask you for permission before they take inspiration. That is just ridiculous. Because by that logic, every time you go on Pinterest to look for references or for inspiration, you'd have to ask every single individual person for permission to get inspired by their work. Can you see where I'm going with this? I can almost guarantee that no one does that. Literally no one. So with that in mind, the people who are saying you aren't allowed to take inspiration from their also original work or allowed themselves to take inspiration from other people without asking first, or you're not allowed to take inspiration from their work. Okay. Well, let's pretend that you actually set out to not take inspiration from anything or anyone. It'd quite literally be impossible, because the part of your brain that creates new stuff and gives you new ideas is actually just mixing things you already know of into something new. So it's quite literally impossible to make something completely original, and thinking that you and all your work is so original that no one else has thought about it before is just stupid. Nothing is original and you're not that special, I'm sorry. So in conclusion, there's no way you can ban other people from taking inspiration from you, because for you to have made work in the first place, you had to take inspiration from somewhere. And that would mean you are a hypocrite. So if anyone tries to bring up how the artist said they weren't allowed to take inspiration, I'm just gonna dismiss that, because that is just not a valid argument. Because like I said, you cannot prevent people from taking inspiration from you. You can't do anything about it legally either. There's literally nothing you can do about it. Anyways, going on to the third accusation. On August 13th, 2021, the Goofy Police 1232 made a post accusing Theo of drawing not safe for work of his two minor OCs, both of which were supposedly 16 according to their ref sheets. I'd reached out to Theo and asked him about this as well. According to Theo, in terms of the bunny girl OC, he'd first drawn her in a bit of a suggestive pose on January 28th of 2021. At the time, Theo claims that the character didn't have a fixed age yet. On January 29th, aka the very next day, Theo made a ref sheet for her stating she was 16. After he established this character as being a minor, he hasn't drawn him in any suggestive way since. The other OC by the name of Noah is a bit different though. Theo claims that he made the original ref sheet stating the character was 16 back in 2020. However, he doesn't have proof of these dates because it's on his old phone, so we'll have to take his word for it. On March 2nd and March 7th, he made the 3 not safe for work pieces of his character Noah. I'm gonna put them up on screen because they aren't graphic or anything, they're just mildly suggestive. Now, this is where it gets tricky, because Theo claims at the time he made the not safe for work pieces that he had made the character 18. However, we don't have any documented proof of this. It was first about a month later that Theo made an official ref sheet stating that the character was 18 in April. So we're basically left with this gap where it's a bit of a gray area if the character was legal or not. So it honestly comes down to whether his character looks like a child or not. I personally think that his character is so curvy that if you theoretically took it to court, you wouldn't win the case. The overall curves of the character look mature, and I think if I had no idea what age this character was, I wouldn't assume they were underage because of those curves. On to our fourth accusation, which is engaging with a pedophile. Of all the claims so far, this one has got to be probably the grossest one of them all. In the Goofy Police 1232's post, they also mentioned Theo talking with this 18-year-old supposed pedophile. The reason this is brought up is because it's used as an argument for why Theo is a bad person. Now, this would have been a bit different if Theo was an adult, but Theo is actually 15 years old. He confirmed this in our DMs himself. Well, why does this matter, you might ask? Well, this makes the situation drastically different. People are essentially mad at Theo for not disassociating with this person even after calling them out for being a pedophile, but because Theo is 15, that is probably a bit harder than you might think. You see, there's this thing called grooming. Have you ever heard of it maybe? There's even proof of this in the post accusing Theo. In a screenshot shown, Theo sends an image to this person saying that they drew Nolet for them since they forced them to, and then a mildly suggestive drawing. Isn't that just a tad bit concerning, don't you think? And the fact people are getting mad at Theo for this is just outright victim blaming, and it's honestly gross. Like, how can you sit and blame a 15-year-old for being in a bad situation like that? Theo also mentioned in her DMs that this individual had done terrible things to him in the past. He didn't go into detail other than saying that he asked him for nudes. Whether he sent those nudes or not, I'm not sure. But either way, as you can tell, this is not a good situation at all. Also, another thing I think I should mention is Theo used to go by the username Coming on Kids, which admittedly is pretty suspicious given all this context. I questioned Theo about this, and he said that it wasn't even his idea to begin with. He said it was that alleged pedophile's idea, whom I will not name. We all know who I'm referring to though. This to me honestly sounds like Theo could have been pressured into taking this username, but we don't know for sure. Moving on to our 5th accusation, which is smut roleplay with underage characters. For anyone who has no idea what smut roleplay is, it's basically sexual or lewd roleplay over text. In the Goofy Police 1232's post, they also claimed that Theo did a smut roleplay with a 13 to 14-year-old character. They then proceed to show screenshots of a supposed middle school roleplay. In one of these screenshots, Theo is seen asking someone what age their character is, and they respond 13 to 14. I asked Theo about this, and he says these screenshots are taken out of context. He goes on to explain that in the roleplay chat they had, they would ask everyone what their character's age was, and it was only characters above 18 who were allowed to date in the roleplay. So yes, it is possible that there was a 13 to 14-year-old character in that roleplay. However, it was not someone who was engaging in these lewd things. The post accusing Theo specifically mentioned his OC Nolet as the one being underage. Theo claimed that his OC Nolet was 18 at the time of the roleplay. He also sent a screenshot of him asking one of his friends to confirm that in this roleplay this character was in fact 18. Even though this isn't smoking gun proof that this is true, it's still testimony that Theo isn't just talking out of his ass, and that other people can actually confirm that this roleplay actually happened, and that his character was of age. And onto our last accusation. Another thing that people were seemingly enraged about was the fact that Theo had been drawing not safe for work art and doing quite sexual things. And when I say sexual, I just mean talking about not safe for work things on his story, like having wet dreams and such, which is completely normal. This one is the only one of the accusations that is 100% true and has proof to it. Theo has indeed drawn not safe for work art, other than the suggestive poses and such, but real graphic stuff. But if I'm being completely honest, I actually don't think this is that big of a deal. Like, are we gonna sit here and pretend all teens are pretty little Christians who never do anything wrong and never get horny, or never do any of those kind of things? Like, come on now, people. Yes, minors generally shouldn't be in not safe for work spaces because that could go wrong real fast. But we can't really prevent minors from drawing not safe for work things or doing this kind of stuff. That kind of stuff happens all the time. I'm sure even you yourself have gone to not safe for work places as a kid, even if just for curiosity's sake. And when I say not safe for work places, I don't mean physical places, I mean stuff like the hub, if you know what I mean. Moving on to our next point, final thoughts. In conclusion, most of the things Theo has been accused of has either been blatantly false or minor things that simply aren't cancel worthy. The only things Theo has done that seem kinda suspicious is the first claim about the Afro girl, the claim about the alien character, and the last claim about the not safe for work art. None of these things are completely unforgivable acts. I believe if the people who made these call-out posts about Theo actually genuinely were concerned about Theo, they would have reached out to him in DMs and talked it out first. Mainly because making a call-out post sending people to arrest a minor just isn't helping anyone. If you actually want someone to change, sending people to harass them is just not the way. But oh wait, Panda Grace actually did reach out to Theo in DMs, but first after they put Theo on display as an armed thief and sent harassment their way. What a big brain move right there. Now for our last point, what to do going forward. First off, in terms of the Afro girl that was supposedly copied, what Theo can do moving forward is either scrap the design or make it different so it's more original and more distinguishable. That way he can avoid getting into trouble with people like Panda Grace again. That is, if Theo even wants to keep the character, because like he said, it wasn't even an established character, it was just a duo. Another thing I'd advise is, even though you're allowed to take inspiration from anyone you want, regardless of what their bio might say about, oh, you're not allowed to take inspiration, I still think it'd be a good idea to just stay away from those kind of people, just to avoid getting into drama. Same goes for the alien character. Either scrap it or change it, that would be my best advice at least. Because it is admittedly pretty much a copy of Unknown Spy's character, and I don't think you want it to be mistaken for their character either. In terms of drawing not safe for work art, I can't stop you from drawing that kind of stuff. All I can advise is just keep it offline. Either that or only show it to your friends, mainly because, like I said, if you get into not safe for work spaces, it can get really uncomfortable really fast. Because horny people don't really think straight, if you know what I mean. So that could land you in a pretty bad situation. Also, a side note, I find it pretty funny how some of the people who were really mad about Theo drawing not safe for work art were minors themselves. And would you look at that, they also drew not safe for work art. And that's just hilarious. The hypocrisy is unreal. Also, you might have noticed that here in the background I've been drawing a character inspired by those very people who were so mad about people taking inspiration from their work. So that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm taking inspiration, I'm making a character based on those elements that their characters have, and there's absolutely nothing they can do to prevent me from doing this, so enjoy the rest of this speed paint.
Black glimmer, feel my blood simmer. Black glimmer, front stars glimmer. Not a silver, got myself a winner. Black glimmer, black glimmer. Black glimmer, feel my blood simmer. Black glimmer, front stars glimmer. Not a silver, got myself a winner. Black glimmer, black glimmer. I've been feeling so emotional now. Got my heartbeat racing through the streets of my town. Got the champagne popping and I'm going to wild. When I gotta hit the gas, ain't no time for a countdown. No judgment, I just do my own thing. Don't need opinions, running in my own lane. You better check me, cause I ain't got no brakes. Better strap up, cause we're doing shit. Got a black glimmer ready for the garden. Road shaking when I be starting. Revving up, all the ops be sparkling. 4.4 V8 bombarding. Got the lights, even flash like stars. Come around and my thing is up to par. Hit the switch and we're going in. R6 gear pedaling, man, I'm taking you to Mars, eh? Black